Hi, everybody. Welcome to a new episode. It's not weekly reads, but it's close. We're calling this one Staff Picks with Devon and Joy. Of course, I'm Devon. I'm a librarian at the Worcester Public Library, and I'm here with my coworker, Joy. How are you today, Joy?
Oh, good. It's getting close to the holiday I love best.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun. So this show is really similar to weekly reads, except we're not doing any coming soon titles because we have a whole new coming soon show on the first weekend of January. And this one's going to have 6 titles instead of the usual 5. So if you watched us in the past, this will be really similar. Everything we're talking about today, you can get online for free with the Libby or Overdrive app on your phone or device. You can also use Overdrive on your browser with your laptop or desktop. And we're still doing physical pickup of items if you want to get a print book or a book on CD. If you're not sure how to do any of those things I just talked about, you can comment below or contact the library and we'll help you out. So now I'm going to switch screens so you can see what we have lined up for you this week. Okay, so as usual, I'll be covering the fiction, and Joy will do the nonfiction. And we didn't mean to match our book covers, but it just kind of happened.
Looks like we did.
It does.
There's a theme.
Okay, so for my first book, I chose Sad Janet by Lucy Britch. First of all, just look at that dog with a sweater. I had to start with that. This book came out just this past summer in June of 2020. It was named one of the best books of the season by LitHub and The Millions. The book is described as hilarious, wise, wicked, and tender. In the book, Janet works at a dog shelter in the woods. She wears black, loves the Smiths, like many of us, and can't wait to get rid of her boyfriend. Her brain is full of anxiety, like one of those closets you don't want to open because everything will fall out and crush you, anxiety. She has a meddlesome family, eccentric coworkers, and not many friends. Above all, Janet has her sadness, a cloak she uses to insulate herself from the world. That is, until one summer when there's a new pill that gives cynics like her a taste of happiness. When her family stages an intervention about her depression, her boyfriend leaves, and the prospect of going through Christmas alone seems like too much. Janet, who nicknamed herself Sad Janet, decides to try the pill. What follows is life-changing in ways no one quite expects. Hilarious, wise, and warm, this book is the depression comedy that you didn't know you needed. This book is full of spot-on one-liners, and it got a starred review from Booklist. It's also for people who wonder why they spend time with humans instead of just dogs. Author Claudia Day said, "This is a tragicomic riot of a book. It's hysterically funny and sly and a moving defense for feeling all there is to feel in a medicated world." So even though this book came out in the summer, it does have some Christmas themes in it, obviously. If you're having a hard time facing the holidays by yourself during the virus and you want to feel like you've got some company in that, Sad Janet is probably a good choice. Here's one from Joy.
Well, my first choice for this week is Cast, The Origins of Our Discontents by Isabel Wilkerson. When I first chose Isabel Wilkerson's Cast as the topic of the January meeting of our American History virtual book discussion, I had no reason to believe that participants wouldn't be able to obtain a copy fairly easily. After all, Cast is just one of many recently published, well-written, and provocative books that have addressed issues of race and social class. So what's one more? Boy, was I wrong. I am now number 437 on the holds list for the Worcester Public Library for this book. You've probably heard that there is nothing more powerful than an idea whose time has come. Well, clearly, Cast is a book whose time has come. Why? Why is a 400-page title guaranteed to make those readers me among them, who occupy a fairly high place within the American caste system, skin-crawlingly, excruciatingly uncomfortable in such high demand. Well, first of all, Wilkerson is a fine storyteller, as anyone who has read her previous award-winning title, The Warmth of Other Suns, can attest. Then there are the reviews, a lot of them, a lot of raves from every publication imaginable. One reviewer called this book the most important nonfiction book, not just this year, but this century. And to top it off, Caste is an Oprah book, one that she included on her list of books that got her through this terrible year, 2020. And now to the crux of the matter. Wilkerson says that our fundamental problem, the one that has bedeviled us since our founding, is not racism per se, but caste. Discrimination based on race is a phenomenon only a few hundred years old. Caste, on the other hand, has existed for thousands of years and has been a prominent feature of many societies, including notably India and Nazi Germany. Race, skin color, is merely our peculiarly American variation on the theme. Now, racism is in your face, often crude, obviously irrational, and easily repudiated. Caste is more subtle, deep-seated, and stubborn. Any caste system, including ours, accepts the premise that certain groups, by virtue of birth, are accorded a host of privileges, and others, by virtue of birth, are deprived of them. Caste can be so thoroughly embedded and powerful that many of us don't even recognize it when we see it. And many of us, whether we admit it or not, might hesitate to upend an unjust caste system if our rung on the social ladder to which we cling is threatened. So what can we do? Wilkerson says that she doesn't know, but what she does know is that unless we see the problem and own it, no alternative has a fighting chance. Devon, I ended up buying a copy of this book because otherwise I'd be reading it well into 2021.
Yeah, this book is super popular. It's been on the bestseller list for a while and everyone's talking about it. So I'm not surprised there's a big hold list for it. Okay, here's my next fiction choice. How Much of These Hills is Gold by Pam Zhang. This book came out in April of this year. Ooh, this book got so many accolades. It's a New York Times and Washington Post Notable Book of the Year and an NPR Book of the Year. It was longlisted for the Booker Prize, and it was a Best Book of the Month for April 2020, according to Amazon.com. It's described as an electric novel set against the twilight of the American gold rush. In the book, Ba, which is the Mandarin word for dad, Ba dies in the night, and Ma is already gone. Newly orphaned children of Chinese laborers, Lucy, age 12, and Sam, 11, are suddenly alone in a land that refutes their existence. Fleeing the threats of their western mining town, they set off to bury their father. Along the way, they encounter giant buffalo bones, tiger paw prints, and the specters of a ravaged landscape, as well as family secrets and sibling rivalry. Both epic and intimate, blending Chinese symbolism and reimagined history with fiercely original language and storytelling, How Much of These Hills is Gold is a haunting adventure story and an unforgettable sibling story. It also explores race in an expanding country and the question of where immigrants are allowed to belong. It's about the memories that bind and divide families and the yearning for home. This book got some of its inspiration from Steinbeck's The Grapes of Wrath. It also got starred reviews from everybody, Library Journal, Publishers Weekly, Kirkus, and Book Page. USA Today said, just as Zhang tinkers with Western tropes, she also plays with language, weaving Chinese phrases with cowboy drawl, merging myths of tigers with fables about where the buffalo roam. Her prose can be heart-stoppingly lyrical. So I read some snippets of this book. It is, in fact, very lyrical, beautifully written. I can't wait to get my hands on a copy. If you're like me, you're going to have to be on the wait list for a while, but I think it will be worth it. And here's one from Joy.
Lyrical and original, right up my alley.
Me too.
My next choice for this week is The Sirens of Mars, Searching for Life on Another World by planetary scientist Sarah Stewart Johnson, which is yet another one of the 100 notable books selected by the New York Times at the end of the year.
Nice.
From ancient times, we humans have been intrigued by the planet Mars and have pondered its many mysteries. For millennia, Mars could only be seen as a blazing red dot in a dark sky. Later, the introduction of increasingly sophisticated telescopes allowed astronomers like Massachusetts-born Percival Lowell to get a closer look. Lowell believed that he detected irrigation canals dotting the Martian landscape, which to him denoted an advanced, possibly utopian civilization. Other scientists speculated that the dark areas they observed on the Martian surface gave proof of a lush and verdant world well capable of supporting life. From the beginning, Mars has obsessed scientists and eccentrics who have used the tools at hand, including, in one case, a hot air balloon, to edge just a bit closer to an impossibly distant target. The hopes of many were dashed when the cameras carried on the first Mariner missions appeared to reveal a desolate, blasted landscape battered by space debris and utterly dead. So much for that. Well, not so fast. Recent advances involving the use of rovers equipped with high-resolution cameras have shown that Mars was once quite similar to Earth, and most importantly, had an abundance of water. What is more, research on microbial life on Earth has shown that infinitesimally tiny but unquestionably living organisms have not only survived but thrived under conditions once thought to be totally inhospitable to life. Could it be that buried deep beneath the surface of Mars, life in some form, however foreign to us, exists? And if so, what promise does that hold for the future? These are the questions addressed by Sarah Stewart Johnson in The Sirens of Mars. Stewart is both an accomplished scientist and an eloquent writer whose lyrical prose captures the awe many of us feel when we gaze up into the night sky. We yearn to know that we are not alone in a cold and empty universe, she says. And then she adds, I yearn for that.
Mars is all over the news lately, so this is definitely a timely choice to include.
We are going there, for sure.
I hope so. Okay, here's my next choice. Shuggy Bane by Douglas Stewart. I just discovered this book. I had never heard of it until a couple weeks ago, and then I was reading about it, and it turns out it came out right before the pandemic really hit. So you might be in the same boat as me where you haven't heard about this book yet, but it is supposed to be fantastic. It came out in January of this year. It was a National Book Award finalist, and it won the Booker Prize. This is the story of young Hugh Shuggy Bane, a lonely boy who spends his 1980s childhood in Glasgow, Scotland. Thatcher's policies have put husbands and sons out of work, and the city's drugs epidemic is waiting in the wings. Shuggy's mother, Agnes, is his guiding light, but also a burden for him and his siblings. Married to a philandering husband, Agnes, a former beauty queen, keeps her pride by looking good. But under the surface, she finds solace in drink, and she drains away most of each week's benefits, all the family has to live on cans of lager, hidden in handbags and poured into mugs. Agnes's older children find ways to distance themselves from her, leaving Shuggy to care for his mother as she swings between alcoholic binges and sobriety. Shuggy struggles to become the normal boy he longs to be, and Agnes supports him, but her alcoholism eclipses everyone close to her. A heartbreaking story of addiction, sexuality, and love, this is a portrayal of a working-class family that is rarely seen in fiction. This book has been called neo-Dickensian, and it got starred reviews from Kirkus and Library Journal. Newsday said, Stewart's first novel is as much about Glasgow as it is about Shuggy and his impossible mother. It's a hard, grim book, brilliantly written, and in the end, worth the pain which accompanies reading it. So when I was reading some interviews with the author, he talked a lot about how a lot of books that are well received are more about middle class families. So this really is, more of a hard scrabble look at a family in the 80s in Glasgow. And that's an actual photo there on the right of some children in Glasgow in the 80s. So I'm excited for this one as well. Here's one from Joy.
Look at those one donkey, I guess. Look at the donkey.
Look at it.
Yeah. My next choice and final choice for this week is A Pilgrimage to Eternity, From Canterbury to Rome in Search of a Faith by Timothy Egan, which is also a New York Times notable book for 2020. When Pulitzer Prize winning writer Timothy Egan stepped off a plane at Heathrow Airport on the first leg of a long journey, a customs official asked him whether he was traveling alone, and he was tempted to say, "Really, aren't we really all traveling alone?" Then he took one look at the official's deadpan expression and thought better of it. This is what came of months of mental, physical, and spiritual preparation for a pilgrimage from England to Rome via a route that millions had traversed over millennia. Egan sought what pilgrims everywhere have always sought: escape, adventure, challenge, a good story or two, and maybe, just maybe, a bit of spiritual transcendence. Egan's narrative is tinged with melancholy. In no uncertain terms, he addresses the decline of Christianity in its former European heartland. And Egan, a, quote, lapsed but listening Catholic, says that he hopes to visit places of significance to generations of Christians before it is too late. And it is a good thing that he has chosen to share his journey with us, because he is, in the words of one critic, the best travel writer around. On his way to the Holy City, Egan takes us to haunted and haunting places, often well off the beaten track. Saint-Omer, home to one of the largest libraries of medieval manuscripts in the world. Arras, site of one of World War II's most horrific battles. Rheims, where French kings were crowned until the last Louis was beheaded. A treacherous mountain pass, a Dom Perignon tasting room. He lingers in a host of empty churches, viewing old bones and the incorruptible bodies of forgotten saints. And Egan makes no bones about the fact that the church is in good part responsible for its own demise. Centuries of corruption, power grabbing, intolerance, and sexual predation have used up much of the capital that once accrued to a small sect of believers who shared what they had, eschewed warfare, and loved one another. Yet he continues to revere Jesus and admire two men named Francis, the saint, and the Pope. He writes movingly of a small group of Catholics in Calais who, in defiance of local authorities, continue to serve Muslim refugees, and of the austere beauty of a worship service in the oldest church in England. As Egan draws closer to Rome, he also moves closer to some kind of spiritual renewal. But not all of his questions are answered, nor does he expect them to be, at least in this life. The journey itself is the point, he says, and it's best to walk with eyes wide open, or you will miss the breadcrumbs of epiphany along the way. And among those breadcrumbs are some delicious meals, which he describes in detail. And this would be a great book, I think, for this season, because this season opens most of us, I think, to some kind of yearning for some kind of spirituality. So this may be a good choice.
Yeah, even for the travel aspect, I think that's incredible that he decided to do that journey.
Oh, yeah.
All right, well, that brings us to the end of our episode for this week. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget that if you're looking for a personalized recommendation, you can just drop that in the comments below, and Joy and I will get back to you with a wealth of suggestions. Otherwise, thanks for watching.
And see you next year, fellow readers.